What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So today we're going to talk a bit about a Pokemon game that randomly released, just kind of like out of nowhere, like shadow dropped onto the Play Store for your cell phones. Yeah, it's a cell phone Pokemon game. We're going to talk a bit about that. I've actually played some of it too, so I can give you guys a bit of impressions on it, I guess, and some gameplay. And we're also going to talk about Ubisoft, who has 3 unannounced games, AAA games as they are calling them, coming out between now and March. So we're gonna take a few guesses here to see what those could be. And the Switch has officially passed the PlayStation 4 in Japan for lifetime sales. So we're gonna go over all of that today, guys. As always, enjoy these videos. Make sure you hit the like button. It does help out, and get subscribed as we head towards 300,000 subscribers and E3 that is like 3.5 weeks away. It's kind of feeling like E3 now after that Mario Maker 2 Direct yesterday. I did impressions on that as well, kind of my thoughts on the Direct and everything. So check that out in the card above as well. Today, actually, we're going to start with Skull and Bones. Do you remember this game? Because if you don't remember it, I really don't blame you too much. It kind of came and went at the E3. It was basically the naval combat, I think, from like Assassin's Creed and stuff, that they kind of wanted to make their own game out of it. And they showed it off. It was basically naval combat and stuff. Looked like you would level up and get new equipment and everything as you played. It looked okay for people who enjoyed those kind of games. It looked kind of high quality there, but it appears that it's actually been delayed again. So originally, it was thought to be coming out 2018. And then it got pushed to 2019, and now it's been pushed to beyond their 2019-2020 fiscal year, which will end at the end of March. So this game is not coming out anytime before April. April would be the earliest that it would come out. So unfortunately, for people who are looking forward to Skull and Bones, you're gonna be waiting a bit longer. Now, it's probably good that they're not pushing it out the door as they've done with a lot of live service games. Not necessarily just Ubisoft, just like everybody with live service games. So at least they're holding on to it and trying to polish it up a bit before they put it out. I also think there's just nowhere to release it, to be completely honest, because we're going to go over a few other games here when we get into the bigger news, and you're going to kind of quickly see how Ubisoft is actually packing the next, I would say, 8 months or so with games. Also, you know, we have Devil May Cry coming out on the Switch, just the first one, not the second or the third one. Well, there's been a lot of questions as to what it is exactly. Is it just like an actual remaster of the original one that you're bringing over to the Switch, so you're starting from scratch? Is it part of that HD trilogy that you're bringing over? It does appear that it's the first game in that HD collection that is currently on the PlayStation 4, so when they bring that over, they're basically ripping it out of the collection and moving it over to the Switch. There's gonna be a lot of questions about pricing. That's the biggest thing right now. How much is this going to cost? Because I looked around and I could find that collection for roughly $20 or so. So if this one game from the collection comes over and it's $20 or more, that's pushing it. I think at the most this thing should be $15, like 10 to 15 bucks. If it's more than that, I really do think Capcom is taking advantage of the Switch crowd on that, just because we know about the collection, right? The one game, not even the best one, not even 3, coming over and being super expensive would be an issue. So we'll keep an eye on that, but just know it is the first game from that collection, according to Capcom when talking to US Gamer. Also, here's a really weird story that's just kind of out of nowhere. PDP is actually making a light gun for the Xbox One. I know, it's like at the edge of left field, but they are doing it. And they actually have a couple games they're going to release for it. Here's an image of the light gun in question. It's called the Mars light gun, I guess. It's $30 for just the gun and the camera that would go on or around your TV so it can tell where you're shooting, of course. And some of the games they have lined up, I looked at them and I said, I don't know if that's going to sell it very well. We have, Cubix Quest, Big Buck Hunter Arcade, and Voyage of the Dead. So I think you need to go get one of those arcade shooters like think of Time Crisis, right? There's several other ones too, where there's like Ghost Squad, and there's a lot of ones that are kind of generic, but they still get the job done. I think that's what a lot of people would like to play. I mean, if you can get Time Crisis somehow, some way, I know that's like, this Namco and everything, and they're very much into the arcade scene right now, but if you get something similar to that, I think it'd be much more interesting. Package that with the gun con and everything here, the light gun they have, and then you might have something. Currently, they have packages ranging from like $60 to $80. It's kind of all over the place, but hey, a light gun is a light gun, I guess, so maybe they can actually come through with the software. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're gonna start with Ubisoft right away. Now, Ubisoft had their investors briefing where, of course, they talked to investors, kind of give a roadmap ahead, talk about some of the games previously. Apparently, the Division 2 performed under expectations, but they still have plenty of monthly active users, you know, recurrent spenders, essentially, that they are leveraging. So they're not disappointed completely with Division 2, but I think they were expecting more, maybe even too much out of it. But either way, it's okay for them, I guess, mediocre for them. But they are now saying that they will have three unannounced AAA games heading into the fourth quarter of this year. So we're going into the fourth quarter. We of course know we have most likely, I'm saying most likely because this is something a lot of us are expecting, Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs 3, we assume, is going to get announced at E3 and set for a holiday release. Now, these are unannounced AAA games that will be revealed and then released leading into the end of their fiscal year, which would be at the end of March 2020. And we figure Watch Dogs 3 is one of them. That's been talked about so much, heavily rumored. People seem very on board with that rumor, so we'll just pin one of them as Watch Dogs 3. I'm not counting Ghost Recon because that's already been announced. Doesn't count, but that also would be coming out around the holiday, a little obviously before. But so we're looking at Ghost Recon, Watch Dogs 3. Those I assume would be right in there. And then I do think they have something with Nintendo. I think they're going to announce some sort of collaboration. Think of Mario Rabbids just as an example. It could be a sequel to that, right? It could be a whole new thing. They, of course, did Starlink previously at an E3 as well. So shocking to see Ubisoft and Nintendo announcing a game? No, not at all. I actually expect them to, and I think that would be one of their AAA games. And then what would that last one be? Well, we all know what we want it to be at this point. Splinter Cell. Now, I don't know if it's going to be Splinter Cell. I really wish I could tell you it is. I think a lot of us understand that Splinter Cell is in development. Ezekiel almost talked about it at this point, that, yeah, we're working on it, but we want to make sure it's good. Could this be a teaser and reveal somewhat at E3 for Splinter Cell? Maybe at the end, you see the lights come on and then it says something like 2020, and then they have a reveal event later on in the year. It's possible. It really is. Because I'm trying to think of another AAA game that's currently unannounced that they would do. Maybe something with, what do they have, The Crew? Maybe that, although The Crew 2 kind of came and went as well. So I am struggling to think of another game that they would reveal that's AAA, that they count as AAA, which is usually bigger budget. I can't really think of anything else. I feel like Splinter Cell's probably been in development for quite a while, and there you would show it. So E3 is exciting. Skull and Bones, for example, will not be at E3 at all. They already said this. So Ubisoft is going to be announcing some stuff. I think their show is going to be very interesting to pay attention to. I'll be looking at it, streaming it, and everything, because we're having a lot of fun at E3, guys. I'm getting excited. I really am, because I'm ready to be let down and not see a Splinter Cell there this year, because I'm sure, since we all want it, that's probably what'll happen. Next up, let's talk about Japan and sales for the Switch versus the PlayStation 4. We're also going to go over some of the game sales that took place. These are the past 2 weeks, kind of added together. It was Golden Week, threw everything off, of course, but we have sales for hardware and some software. We'll start with the software here, where Days Gone continues to impress at the top. Number one still, 11,988 units. It's now crossed 160,000. This right here is for the week of May 6th to the 12th. Hardware was kind of added together because that one, for some reason, fell behind. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at number 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 3, Minecraft, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Pokemon Let's Go, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Yoshi's Crafted World, Splatoon 2, and then Super Mario Party. So other than Days Gone, it was pretty much all Switch games. In fact, if Days Gone does fall off in the next week or two, the entire top 10 probably will just be all Switch games, but that kind of leads into our hardware that you're seeing here. We have the Switch at the top. These are from the past 2 weeks, of course, 83,471, and that does, at this point, put the Switch above the PlayStation 4 and the PS4 Pro, of course, all added into one SKU by a fairly healthy margin at this point that I think is just going to continue growing with the back end that Nintendo has with this year. The PlayStation 4 still managed to move 30,000 units over those 2 weeks, and that puts it at 8,077,000. So at this time, tracking the Switch by nearly 50,000 units behind. So yes, the Switch will continue to grow heavily. The 3DS, 10,351, PlayStation Vita over 1,000 in those 2 weeks, and the Xbox One at 382. And this is just something that we've talked about here for a little bit about the Switch pretty much taking over Japan. We see the top 10 games list. I think throughout the year, we're going to see coming up, we're going to see the Switch completely overtake that top 10, especially when the newer releases, the evergreen titles like an Animal Crossing, right? When Animal Crossing comes out, that's going to be in the top 10 for quite a while, much like we see still Breath of the Wild up there. when the mainline Pokemon, I say mainline hardcore RPG, whatever you want to call them, Pokemon games Sword and Shield come out, that's going to be in the top 10 for quite a while. So you kind of see where these are going to start bumping out games from Sony. And yeah, Japan's just pretty much gonna be taken over. And I think at this point, Sony understands this and they've kind of started to shift focus west with a lot of their first party IPs and everything. So it almost seems like Nintendo wants Japan, they're gonna take Japan. Sony's kind of okay looking more towards the west with their PlayStation 5 coming up. I think that kind of makes sense for them to shift over that way. But hey, the Switch growing rapidly. These are 3DS-like numbers, which means the Switch will probably finish in the, I want to say 20 to 25 million unit range in Japan alone. So fascinating stuff. Next up, let's talk about this Pokemon game, because randomly, it just popped up. I don't know what happened here. Pokemon Rumble Rush just released in different regions. It was kind of like this this release that was staggered. I actually managed to get it off of the Australian Play Store with a little bit of changing around and region and everything and making it work. But I did get it. I managed to play it. It's Pokemon Rumble Rush, and well, it's okay. It's a free-to-play game, so I understand there's gonna be mechanics like you having to wait for different things to happen. And what's really weird about this, you actually wait to essentially open a loot box. That's the idea. It's very odd for this, but that's what they went with. You collect ore, you then take that ore, you move it over, it turns into a chest, and then you have to wait for that ore to refine, and then you get to open the chest. Yeah, that's how it works. But the gameplay, at least, is something that is pick up and play. It's very quick. Most levels are a minute or less, and you essentially run through with whatever Pokemon you have at the time, and you tap enemy Pokemon in front of you, and then you destroy them. And that's pretty much the game. You go through, you would destroy bosses, you then will capture new Pokemon as you defeat them, and then you go through and they have different regions that they appear to be updating as they go, and it's a fun time waster. That's about it. It's not a very deep game at all. I'm still thinking that DeNA is going to make a gacha style game where you actually summon Pokemon. That's what I think they're going to work on, but that's not, I guess, what this is, because the DeNA one isn't supposed to be out till the end of this fiscal year, March? I don't really know. I think this just kind of dropped. They said, hey, let's put this out there. It's a quick and easy thing to do. It's free to play. And I think still right now, it's not necessarily available everywhere, just on Android devices in Australia and maybe other parts of the world. But I'm sure we'll have a sweeping release soon enough, if not already by the time you're watching this, on Android and iOS. But I wouldn't go into it with high expectations going to it, knowing that it's kind of a one of those screen tapping, time wasting games that you can play while you're in line or on the bus or something. It's not a super deep experience for a Pokemon game. And our last bit of news is talk about The Last of Us 2, as it does appear to at least be coming up on the end of development. Actually, you're seeing a tweet here, and this is from Anthony Newman, who's the game's co-director, and you can see Anthony just looking for a slew of hires. And the idea here, according to Newman, is that the studio is now seeking to close out work on the game. So animators, all kinds of people coming in, programmers, to finish this thing up. We heard, of course, they shot the final scene fairly recently in the game. Now, sometimes you will shoot different parts of the game at different times, so you might not necessarily, shoot it in order. But still, to hear that they closed it out, it helped things at the end with a period. I do think we're getting close. Now, if you do these kind of hires, there's a chance that you are really, really pushing, and they've done things like release God of War in April. Last of Us 2 could be an early 2020 release. I think that's very possible, actually. And honestly, the sooner the better, because I'm looking forward to it as well. So if it comes earlier in 2020 and something like Death Stranding or Ghost of Tsushima ends up being their holiday release, I'm okay with that, because Last of Us 2 will probably continue to sell throughout the holidays. And then, of course, as long as that PlayStation 5 is backwards compatible as they say it is, you could also technically pick it up with your PlayStation 5, even if it is a PS4 disc. So it technically doesn't matter when it comes out, but I'd rather it come out sooner than later. Good to hear they're trying to close it out now, though. And let's finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This one comes to us from JMT saying, Sony is making a series of mistakes at the end of their console cycle. Rather, it was being against crossplay or this censorship issue. This is only helping Nintendo and the Switch in the long run, and will give the next Xbox a chance where they wouldn't have had one otherwise. So Microsoft is, at this time anyway, bending over backwards for consumers. They need to, because when they first started the generation, they treated the consumer very poorly, and most of us picked up on it, and that's why a lot of us bought PlayStation 4s rather than the Xbox day one. That was a massive mistake. I don't think Sony's going to make that same mistake, but hey, I would have told you the same thing when they were going to the PlayStation 3 generation, and then they showed up with a $600 box and told us to get another job or something to pay for it. So I don't think Sony is that dumb. I think they understand price is one of the most important things, and that's, I think, why the PlayStation 5 isn't coming out this holiday. It's coming out next holiday. Same with Microsoft, because I think the pricing has to be correct. I think it has to be $400. So while I think censorship and the crossplay stuff isn't exactly like helping them, I don't think it's reaching a wide enough audience at this time to actually affect the PlayStation 5. Now, if some kind of story explodes and breaks that they actually had to censor something about The Last of Us 2 in production, they said you can't do this, and that comes out, then you might get some people kind of like, oh, what's going on here, Sony? But I think if they continue to censor like niche Japanese-based games like we just saw with Omega Labyrinth Life, I don't think enough people are actually going to care for Sony to have any kind of backlash on console sales. But it is going to still be interesting to see what happens with Microsoft and all their studios against Sony and all of their studios heading into this next generation. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure to hit the like button. It does help out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about, whether it's Ubisoft's 3 unannounced games that are set to release before the end of this fiscal year, which means we'd have to find out about them most likely at E3 so they can start their marketing campaign and get their holiday schedule and early next year set up. Because remember, they do like to release games like Division 2, for example, earlier in the year. That was in March, so we could see a big game like that as well in March next year. Also, let me know what you think about that Pokemon game that released. Did you download it and play it? What do you think? And then what do you think about the Switch passing the PS4 in Japan? And where do you think its roof is for units sold there? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.